Hi everyone, welcome back to the table. I'm Kim Ganassin and we're going to get into a little discussion about being three-dimensional. Now why do I have to tell you to be three-dimensional? Because right now there are a lot of discussions going on about the shift to five-dimensionality, the fifth dimension, which I equate with the fabric. Okay? Now, a lot of people are out there saying they can't wait to escape being three-dimensional. They don't like the three-dimensional world. They can't wait until we make this shift into 5 dimensions so that they can feel fulfilled. They can feel more at home. They can feel all the things that they want to feel that they can't do in three-dimensionality. Okay, well, I want to make it very clear. I'm calling this video Be Three-Dimensional because I believe in three-dimensionality and I want to explain why. Okay? I want to start with a quote by our good brother Albert Einstein. And Albert says, "The only source of knowledge is experience." Okay? The only source of knowledge is experience. Now that quote means a lot to me because as somebody who lives on the vibrational fabric and has the ability to feel vibrational reality beneath the surface of all phenomenon, okay, all relevant phenomenon, I don't look at everything, only what's relevant, okay, I want you to know that there is a difference between experiencing something and conceptualizing it. Okay? Very important distinction. We cannot know what we have not experienced. This is what Mr. Einstein is saying. This is what I'm saying. You can't know what you haven't experienced. And conceptualizing something is not knowing it. Okay? A concept from the vibrational perspective, when you conceptualize something, an idea of anything, any kind of idea, that you conceptualize something that you have not experienced yet, the vibration comes out of you. It comes out of your head. So a concept is something that you generate. It's not something that was a phenomenon outside of yourself that you somehow came in contact with and it affected you and you changed because of it, because the experience became part of you. That's a true experience, okay? It is recorded in your nervous system. It is something that made you feel something. You accepted those feelings one way or another. You accepted those feelings and the experience became part of you. Now you've experienced whatever that was. Now you've experienced it. But do you see where conceptualizing it really comes out of your head and it doesn't really have much to do with whatever that authentic thing is? Okay? Does that make sense? So, I'm going to propose that we can't know what five-dimensionality is, what this shift is about, unless we experience it. So why is it that I'm sitting up here saying that I've experienced 5D and maybe you haven't? What's going on with that? What makes me say that your concept of it is not the same as my experience of it? Well, there's that vibrational thing we just talked about, but there's a little trick that I use to feel vibration, and then it is my choice to receive that vibration, allow it to be imprinted on my nervous system, allow it to change me, allow it to change my thoughts, allow it to change my speech, allow it to change my behavior, and allow it to change how I relate to you. That's a choice. Okay? So, I want to talk to you a little bit about how you can have the option of experiencing things that you haven't experienced before, including 5D, instead of just conceptualizing it. Okay, so I'd like you to welcome my very special guest, your nervous system. Okay? This is your head, and this is your spine. Okay? Now, when I'm dropping onto the fabric, what gets me there? What gets me to the fabric? Well, what gets me on the fabric is I open up my spinal cord, and I open up all the little nerves that are connected to the spinal cord, all the nerves that are embedded in my muscles, that are embedded in my three-dimensional body. I open all that up. You know, I imagine that instead of being closed down like this, that I allow my nervous system to expand, and that there is space in there somewhere, that there's some kind of a magical space in there, and that my nervous system, even though it's 3D, allows me to experience the 5D that already exists out there. I'm not conceptualizing 5D. I'm not creating it out of my head. I'm being receptive to it by using my spinal cord and all my little nerves all over the place. Now, did I say my head? No. No, not my head. This is why. I see a big difference between your brain and the rest of your nervous system. True that the nervous system is one unified, amazing thing, right? The brain and the spinal cord, everything, it's all connected. However, the brain functions a little bit differently in relation to the discussion that we're having here about perceiving 5D. Okay? So, the brain, what it wants to do is it wants to save your life all day long, every day. That's what it wants to do. It wants to ensure your survival every second of every day. All right? Why? Because you have the reptilian brain way down deep in your brain. It's a physical structure, all right? And it wants to control everything that could possibly lead to your death. Well, guess what? All of us human beings, as a giant herd of beings, we all have one of those reptilian brains, okay? And our reptilian brains actually have us behaving in certain ways, and we lock each other into animalistic sort of patterns of behavior as a group. And you can see a lot of reflections of that in our society right now, in the world right now. The hoarding of resources and the polarization, you know, life and death, black and white. Everything is really very stark and very ugly, very violent, and there is a tremendous amount of exploitation of human beings by other human beings. This is purely animalistic. It's purely fear-based. So what we need to do, if we're going to go beyond the fear-based patterns of the great human herd, we need to start getting back in touch with what the spine knows. Okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to give the brain a rest from analyzing and archiving and categorizing and wrapping things up into very acceptable packages. Right? Okay. Let me just break that down for 1 second. Somebody like me going around talking about, Oh yeah, I was on the fabric the other day, and yeah, and I talked to the blue thing, and it came towards me, and it instilled something in my nervous system, and I spoke from that place, and I acted on that place. You know, people like me, we don't get you know, widely accepted when we talk like that, right? You know what happens to people like us in the history of human history, okay? Well, we have to stop, we have to consciously ask our brains to stop making our behavior patterns and our speech patterns and our thought patterns, our social patterns, acceptable to everybody. We need to move on from that. We cannot continue to allow the survival mechanism in our brains to run the world or to run us as individuals. Because, you know, that's what drives us nuts about 3D. That's why there is such an enormous level of escapism in our society, because we have invested in the fear potential that we have and not the problem-solving potential and the potential to envision and the potential to grow in a positive direction based on faith in ourselves, based on inner knowledge and inner knowing. We've taken that out of the picture, and we're all suffering for it. Escapism is a big problem. And as we go into more discussions about dimensionality, I'm going to say more about escapism in the second dimension, right here on Earth. So you think you can't be three-dimensional and five-dimensional at the same time? I guarantee a lot of us are three-dimensional and two-dimensional at the same time. So we're going to continue to discuss these things in this series about dimensionality. Okay? Part 2 of Be Three-Dimensional is coming up. We're going to go further into dealing with this nervous system and bringing out the potential and evolving out of the fear. I hope you join me. Thanks for being here. Leave your comments and your questions. They're very important right now. Take care.